Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone, wherever you are located in the world. We have a great speaker today. She will have almost 1 hour to share her experience with us. And before welcoming her, I just have a few practical information to share, and while we are receiving more attendees. My name is Engin Kaban, and I'm the chapter director for Startup Grind Tallinn, and I'm also a startup founder myself. Startup Grind is the world's largest community of startups, founders, innovators, and creators, educating, inspiring 3.5 million entrepreneurs over 125 countries in 600 chapters. And it used to be with physical events before, but now with COVID, we are all virtual around the world. And this also allows us to have attendees not only from Estonia, but also from different countries. So it is an advantage, but we just cannot have drinks together, which is a disadvantage. And we also have Startup Estonia as one of our partners. And if your institution or company want to collaborate with us, you are all welcome. I shared my contact details in the chat, so just have a look. You can have a look there. And a few housekeeping notes before we start. We are using Baby platform, which is Startup Grind's own platform. So I strongly recommend everyone to use Google Chrome because that's how it works best. And you can see the attendee list. From there, you can just chat with someone if you want to communicate. And after the event, I will also keep the event live 15 minutes more. So if anyone wants to do network, you can just do that. I will definitely be available. And that's it from my side. So I want to warmly welcome Kaidi. And if you let me, I just want to introduce you very briefly before I give the stage to you. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So Kaidi Ruusalepp is the CEO and founder of Funderbeam, which is a tech-powered global marketplace for funding and trading. She is the former CEO of Nasdaq Tallinn Stock Exchange and of the Central Securities Depository. And she is also the co-founder of Estonian Service Industry Association and member of Startup Europe Advisory Board at European Commission. She is the first IT lawyer in Estonia, and she is 50 year running listed among top 50 Europe's most influential women in the startup and venture capital space. And she has several awards in this area. So once again, thank you for accepting my invite and welcome.
Thank you, my pleasure.
So I have prepared several questions for you, so I hope we will have a great talk. And by the way, for the attendees, you can always put your questions in the Q&A section. And in the end, I will have around 15 minutes to direct your questions to our speaker. So I want to start from the early days, from your education and your kind of first professional job. Let's take it from here. So you studied law and you are the first IT lawyer in Estonia. So I want to know what that means to you. Does that put you some pressure or responsibility? How did you feel having that position?
Yeah, I studied law. I studied first economy law and then the law, the MBA in Tartu University. And when I joined the government office, back then the Estonian Information Systems Department or the tech department was part of the government office. I didn't think about being the first IT lawyer in Estonia. I just needed a job. So sometimes the life introduces opportunities to you and you either take it or not. So I took it for the very simple reason I was a law student and I needed a job. But this IT and IT law, and actually so many entrepreneurs asked and have asked during my journey if the law as an education is something useful for the entrepreneur. And I say yes, because it helps me to understand the legal structures, all the shareholders agreements, the terms, the overall, the corporate law, and where the companies operate. So I would say it's easier to study economy and finance during the founder journey than studying law. So it is a good profession for the founder to have.
And you could combine those two professions, so that was a good opportunity. And
yes,
and during those times, so this is when Estonia was kind of founding itself as an e-state and having this innovative, totally new approach. So can you also elaborate a little bit about that? If they didn't have that strategy, how things would go?
Right. This was basically like 20 years ago. So I joined the government 1996. So that seems like ages ago, before even the 2000 dot-com boom. And sometimes when I look back, I look at my passport and say, okay, I get the numbers, but I'm not that too old, or I'm not that old. So life has treated us in a way nicely here in Estonia, because we were very fortunate generation back then to take part of building the government and building the country and really developing the country. And what was a good thing, and very, very good thing, and maybe if I translate it into the startup terms, then the Estonian Prime Minister, Estonian Parliament, and Estonian President, they were very much innovation and reform driven, and innovation and reform adaptive. And that saved our country, because, coming from the Soviet Union and the way the Soviet Union was led, the way the economy was handled, the legal system, absolutely everything. It was the day and night where Estonia ended up, and also the values were different, but the values and the new country and the new principles and government principles were introduced by the leadership. So in case the leadership and the leaders are very much into this growth-driven, innovation-driven, that will lead the whole country and the whole startup. And we had a very outspoken and very loud the way our president and the prime minister explained the vision and where we are going as a country. People believed in it. So I was fortunate to give my piece in there and to be part of building this tech country and tech nation. And the other thing, actually, that also goes back to we can translate it back to the startup. We were a very poor country. We really were a poor country. And we had a joke that if needed, we would eat those potato peels. So not the potatoes, because potatoes are for the good times, but the peels of it. And that's, if I translate again into the startup industry, very often too much funding is something that ruins quite many companies, because it enables the companies not to focus on the minimum viable product, to launch, deliver, go and chase the market, go and chase the customers. The more funding you have, you kind of have more time, more flexibility, more testing grounds. But then very, very often it doesn't end up good. So that saved Estonia. We didn't have money, meaning we had to make extremely smart decisions.
That is really a very good point. So we can say Estonia as a country worked like a startup in a bootstrapping way, as it is mentioned.
Yes, yes, we can say it's a startup country, and now if you look at the numbers, and we can proudly say we have the second after Israel, the startup and the unicorns per capita. Such a small nation where we all come from, right? From the past, but it's the mindset, and it's the attitude.
So you should be really proud about your first position in the government and with all these foundations.
I was fortunate, and I think I can value these times with the government.
Yeah. And moving from there, you worked as the CEO of the Tallinn Stock Exchange. Can you tell me a little bit about how was your experience there? So it is totally a different area,
Yeah.
and how was your experience? And what if that resulted in something, having you create a new idea, an innovative idea, which translated to something else, to your next projects?
Yeah, the way how I ended up in the stock exchange group, I was initially recruited as the head of development, and my task was to build up one of the huge information systems and the tech systems. And because of my background and the ability to understand the power of the technology and the power of the databases, then okay, because it seemed very interesting. Opportunity, I joined the stock exchange group, but it was the Estonian funded pension project. So we introduced a new pension system, privately funded pension system, to the whole country. And it was very interesting for me, and I took more leadership maybe than I should. And I was closely working together with one of the Bolt founders, Martin Vildig, together. So I remember we were launching a new website, and then discussing the systems and everything. So it also introduced me my very good friends during those years. But somehow, when you really like what you do, you're ready to contribute more and more. I was offered the position as the CEO of the stock exchange, and my background is law and technology and the information systems, and it's not economy, and it's not the security. So I didn't much understand about the securities, even I was working as part of this corporate. But learning by doing, in a way. And again, taking the challenge. It was the second challenge that the life introduced to me. And again, the decision we could take in these times, you say yes or you say no. So I said yes. And what it taught to me working in a huge global corporation, the way different cultures work, the way securities are traded, the way companies are listed on the marketplace, why companies come to the marketplace. And yes, in fact, it led me to the idea of Funderbeam, because I saw during all those years, first, the massive growth of private capital. If I don't know if you've read already the Crunchbase 2021 reports of total venture capital funding last year. So you should read it. It's 660 billion last year that has gone into the startup and venture funding, which is 100% higher than 2020. So it's like a massive growth of private capital. And this capital is invested into startup companies without any stock exchange involvement, meaning that companies stay private longer. It used to be like 5 years, but now it's 12 years. And the companies who were listed on the huge stock exchanges, their average valuation was $500 million. Now the average valuation is close to 5 billion. So then I was thinking that, okay, but still this private capital needs a liquidity, but can we build a stock exchange for the private companies, startup companies that is global? So that's exactly how Funderbeam was born.
So apart from seeing a technology potential, you saw that something global had to be created instead of...
Yeah. I mean, there's like two ways how to create a startup companies. Either you see a problem as a customer, or you come as an insider. You've been working in the system and you know how to hack it. So I'm the latter. I've seen how to hack the system, and because we were, I came from Estonia, and Estonia is a tiny little country in this huge, massive global player as Nasdaq. And I know how many services actually the stock exchange services are provided by the intermediaries. What we try to do, we try to cut all those intermediaries out, like the brokers and the settlement agent and the clearing and the custody, so that we could enable investing in global companies and serve the global investors. So we succeeded with it.
Ask, moving from here to Funderbeam, which is your basically actual company. Can you tell us a little bit about the beginning, the early days? Because you are a marketplace platform, and as many people know in the area, there is this so-called chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
If you are having the supply or demand parts first in your platform, how did you? I think you started with having the companies first.
Yes.
But how was your strategy for this choice, and how did it end? Did it end as you were expecting?
Yeah, that's actually being the CEO of the stock exchange, that helped me a lot. And why it helped me a lot is that in stock market, you know that everything is about the companies, or overall. If you think about the marketplace and think about the market, there's the market. Why would you go to the market? You go there for the goods. So if there's a super good market selling bread, you go there for the bread. So the bread has to come first before the customers before the money goes to the marketplace. You can build a huge grand market and load it with the people, but if nothing is to be bought or to be sold, then it's going to be the dead beginning. So it all starts with the companies. So we first had to introduce the companies, and then investors came because of the companies. And that's what's been said by all our customers. They come to Funderbeam, not always because of Funderbeam, but they come to invest or buy, because we have the trading market as well, to buy the shares of specific companies. The way we introduce the markets is first, we started with the home market and the Estonian market, and only with the Estonian companies and small companies with small funding to introduce the investors. And only after 2 years of introducing smaller companies, we could introduce a bit larger funding rounds and larger trading, and until 2021 it was the, in a way, breaking point where investors have traded more than 15 million euros on our marketplace, and we've been growing 4 times in the trading numbers. So in the marketplaces, it always starts the goods to be sold, and then the customers or the buyers will come.
So as I understand, it took roughly 2 years since you really felt the kickoff. So was this 2 years very challenging? Because
the beginnings are always challenges, and especially in the financial service, where you struggle not only with getting the companies to raise the funds, it first the investors to invest. And when they invest into the companies, they say that, okay, but Funderbeam is so young company. What if you close the doors? What will happen to my investments? And in financial sector, building up the trust, that's a massive challenge, massive. There's nothing but the trust. And once you kind of reach to the certain point, because we tested under the regulatory exemptions, we were confident in 2017 that, okay, now it's a year where we need to go and apply for the licenses to even more broader scale our services. So now we have not only the companies that would want to raise funds or list their shares on our marketplace. It's not only investors, but it's also the regulators as our customers. So we are dealing with a triangle of investor, company, and the regulator. So that's whoever goes into the financial services. It is by far the most regulated industry in the whole universe. The drug industry and drug development industry is left behind for already a couple of years ago.
So when we think about your platform, it sounds simple as connecting investors with startups. But I want to hear also about the technology you have behind, because you are the first blockchain-based platform for trading securities.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, is that correct, or can you elaborate on that?
We introduced it on the blockchain, but we don't use the blockchain anymore, and there are a couple of reasons of it. What Funderbeam does is not only we help investors to invest in the tech companies through the first fundraising, but we also list the company shares and we make the company shares tradable. And if you think about this industry, what we serve, this startup, global startup investments, we can even be called a global startup exchange. Then these investments have nothing to do with the blockchain, nothing. They are just typical share issued equity regulated by the present local regulation. And even so, at the beginning, 2016, we introduced the Funderbeam funding and trading on the blockchain. So in a way, we digitize the investments, which we do right now as well. But we issued the tokens in return. So we made the tokens tradable. But our tokens from the beginning were the security tokens. And we understood three things. And why we decided not to use blockchain through the scaling phase. The first is the technology itself. We used Bitcoin blockchain back then, but it doesn't mean if we'd switch to Ethereum, we'd have the same problems. It's the capacity and scalability capacity of the technology. Our trading is instant. You sell the shares, you get the money. We count the time in seconds. But the technology, public blockchain technology, doesn't enable us instant trading. Sometimes we were waiting in the queue so that our trades were have gone through. We waited for like 30 hours. So basically, this technology was the limit of our speed of trading. The second was the legal aspect, is that we serve the market that is non-blockchain market, that is non-decentralized finance, that is non-distributed ledger market. So it's very typical startup share market. And the third was the fact that even though it was a novel thing to do, and we got an interesting traction, our customers at the end of the day didn't care if we trade on the blockchain or we kind of if I put it in more crispy terms, if we run the trading on the Excel sheet. So, but the good thing is that we are blockchain ready. We are technology agnostic, and we can swap to any new blockchains. So at one point we will do, but the market we serve right now is a very traditional startup securities market.
I see. So you have to be agile and
you have to
in between technologies.
You have to, and you have to, even during the startup journey, make decisions as tough as it was for Funderbeam. We were the first blockchain driven and built on the blockchain stock market, but we're not anymore because at one point the technology became a limitation to our growth. And you have to make this tough decision, either you grow the business or you're still sort of a nice headline. But we didn't want to be a nice headline. We wanted to be a solid business.
And were there other companies following your way, trying it on a blockchain, or?
Yes, there were. We just had a couple of interesting chats at the end of last year with a couple of our back then competitors, and they all decided not to use blockchain anymore. But we see, and because ICOs and this token exchanges and all of it, it was a good hype. But it had to survive the first couple of years of testing and hacking and to slow down and until the next generation of the solutions are coming there. So we see now with the potential growth of Web3, Metaverse, all these new keywords. So the decentralized finance is going to be there. DLT is going to be there, Metaverse is going to be there, and we can easily plug in, but we'll wait the right time.
And with all these changes in the global market, how do you see the position of traditional stock markets? Do you think they are fast enough to adapt or change themselves, or will they be overrun with innovative solutions?
What I see already, the private capital has taken away from the stock market, has taken away the early IPOs. And when the early IPOs have been taken away from the stock market, then the return on the investment or the multiples have also been taken away from the traditional stock market. So thinking about the funds raised and the growth introduced by Google before the listing in 2004, and then mentioning follow-on like Spotify or Facebook or everything. So the valuation, they listed the funds, private funds they've raised before the stock market, the return on the investments they've introduced to the private investors. This is something that has already been taken away from the traditional stock markets. And if you look at those numbers, what we see in the Crunchbase reports, then this is all the traditional capital that now is going into the tech companies and directly investing into fund of funds or the VC funds, and then some take stakes in the startup company. So that's something. And the second is this easy access by the retail investors to the investment. So that's because stock markets, to get access to the stock market, you need a broker. So what's a new interesting trend is all the Robinhood and eToro alike services or the applications for the retail investors, where they get that access to the exchanges, which or different asset classes, which will also a bit amend the way exchanges are driven. And because of the stock markets they are only the trading engine. So whatever happens, the post trade is not under their control. And that's what Funderbeam has changed. And that's what I see also the other potential solutions are tackling in, like Carta and Carta X is introducing the pre-IPO trading. So they will do the order book and the settlement. So these are the changes introduced by the tech and super clever approach to global regulation by the companies like Funderbeam.
And slightly moving away from the finance sector, but sticking to the blockchain and all these new things that are changing the world. We people in tech industry, we are already in some way involved with blockchain, cryptocurrencies, or whatever. So what do you think about the really massive explosion of these applications related with blockchain technologies or cryptocurrencies being used by an average citizen of the world? So how do you see the near future? When do you think a real big change is coming?
I think it already came because of the huge global players, starting from the central banks, talking about the cryptos and talking about the crypto currencies, and some countries starting to introduce their cryptocurrencies. So I think the toughest change is to be made in thinking and accepting the new reality. So in a way, that's why I think that the most important change has been introduced, is this has been accepted by the central banks. This new reality has been analyzed and is analyzed by the huge global investment banks and the players. If you read BlackRock, they also mention crypto and even Nasdaq introduced crypto fund, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the first thing. The second is I think that what these blockchain developments and also going into the metaverse, what they tackle the triggers that are important to us as human beings. The first is belonging to somewhere. So if you think about the crypto, right, and the world, what we can do, we can belong to somewhere without anybody centrally controlling and providing the access. We can belong to the communities. We can belong to the shareholder list or whatever investment group of some of the companies. We can belong to some of the virtual countries or governments. So this type of thing, belonging somewhere, is very, very important for people to have. The second is value-based community. So we don't need to travel around the world or relocate, because virtually we can belong anywhere we want to, right? So and I can have NFTs of some piece of art, a piece of digital beauty that I like, and that's also like belonging somewhere. So I think the triggers that the new potential Web3 as they call it broadly is touching, these are very important to people and especially young people. That's why they are very adaptive to it.
These are some topics that I am personally really interested in. I can hear your talk with you for hours about this, really. I just want to move a little bit because we have limited time. And one more remark for the audience. If you have questions, just put on in the Q&A. We will have a look at them soon. So I want to ask you some more kind of personal question to understand a bit more about your mindset as an entrepreneur. For example, if you have the experience and knowledge you have now, let's say 15 years ago, would you do 15 or 20 years ago? Would you do some of the things in a different way? Do you think you have made some major mistakes?
I would, one thing, what I would do definitely differently, I wouldn't underestimate myself. There's so funny thing. We all believe that, okay, this is tough. This is so tough. And sometimes we wouldn't do think A or B or C because we think that we can't do it. But all those years have taught me that I'm so much stronger than I ever imagined or thought I would be. And you can't kind of predict it because you have to go through something, or you have to go through some tough times to understand how strong actually we are as human beings. So in some of the situations, maybe I would have solved a more quickly and more strictly, because now I know that I can handle all kind of things. And that leads also to some of the negotiations that when looking back, in 15 years ago, and for example, one of the mistakes I made is that and that goes to all the females who listen to it, when I was offered a position of CEO of the stock exchange, I was too modest to negotiate my salary. And later, when I understood what the previous management has been receiving as the heads of the exchange, then I was amazed that what are the numbers, and I was amazed how humble I have been. So you have to go and ask what you want and what you think you deserve, and not think about the company, and not think about I don't know how to run, or all this kind of thing. You've offered the position, you set your price, and you have to set your price. So this kind of negotiations is that you enter to the negotiations in being more confident. I would now enter to the negotiations, and I do now, in being on much more confident level than 15 years ago.
It's really a very, very, very good advice. So you have realized your real power and your real value in time then.
Well, you have to ask. I mean, if you don't ask, you never get. And sometimes I discuss with my son. My son is 14, and he's the new generation of the kids. So we had a renovation of the house this summer, and the way I negotiated something with the builders, like, can you do it this? Can you amend it? Can you blah, blah, blah? All of this. When you ask, you get it. And you ask always, okay, if you do this, can you do that? And later he told me, Mom, I never want to work for you and never want to be a builder, because the way you negotiate with these people, Mom, that's unpolite. But then I told him, if you don't ask, you never get.
I think your son is will definitely be a great founder. I saw him on stage on Latitude 59, your video when you welcomed him. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for people who don't know about it?
Yeah.
Because I know you want to encourage young entrepreneurs, as young as children.
I do, and some people have also. I've been asked. I'm a mother. When I kicked off Funderbeam, then I have two sons, and the younger one was 3 years old. So basically, having with two small kids, 7 and 3, and kick off a startup company. So what did they get out of it? So I've taken them to many of the events, as many events as I could. I've taken them to travel with me as often as I could. And so they've seen me on the stages, and sometimes they've seen me negotiating some of the partnerships. They've seen me working They've been discussing life with Funderbeam employees who are coming all around the world. They met a couple of Funderbeam investors who are the global names and global brand names and discussed life with them. And a couple of years ago, we lived in Singapore. Actually, we came back 2020 for 2 years. So they've seen international life. And that also triggered this entrepreneurship thinking in them. So my 14 years son right now, he's more in the video editing. And I can't say it quite loud, but he came to me one day and said that, Mom, I'm kind of, I'm pretty good at video editing. So some of the YouTubers who have more than 100,000 followers, I work for them. I said, like, you do? Like, what? Yeah, I work for them. So, I hope you don't mind. So this is the way you kind of can encourage them as the founder and as the mom. And the other thing what I do is because through Funderbeam, investors can invest in pretty cool tech companies. We call them ambitious companies. And when an investment opportunity comes to Funderbeam Marketplace, then I show it to my 14-year-old son, the same. I was on the stage with Henrik, and he reads it through and says he knows what's the investment allowance. And then he decides if we invest, and if not, then why not? And if we invest, how much and why? So he has to explain. And the way he thinks and the way he sees the companies, what aspects he analyzes is also the way of him to growing. Obviously, I have to ask permission from Funderbeam, because in many cases, our employees have to ask permission, but that's the way we can grow them as the entrepreneurs. We engage the younger generation.
So your son is also getting all this motivation from you, the mindset, I guess, to do things.
I'm not an easy mom.
When I was reading and researching about you, I want to quote two things that I found out, which I found quite interesting, also for entrepreneurs, and I would like you to elaborate on them. One of them was that if referring to creating a company, you are saying, if I'm not going to do it now, I will regret it the rest of my life. And the other thing is, we had nothing to lose to use blockchain technology in Funderbeam, because we were a startup. So can you elaborate a little bit about this mentality? Is how an entrepreneur should be thinking? Just go and do things, or?
I think so. Yes, because there's million reasons why to say no. Million reasons. If I would think about becoming an entrepreneur, do I know how to establish a company? No. Do I know how to do the marketing of the marketplace? No. Do I know ABC? No, I don't. But I have to find people who do it. So very often when I think about, do we gain something or do we lose something, then from the blockchain, I was thinking we were discussing about all the benefits, what we could get. If we lose something, probably not. So, okay, let's take the opportunity. And that, I think, has come through two areas or two these cycles of my life. One is when I was doing the orienteering. So orienteering, basically you take a map and you run through the controls and the landscape. And through the orienteering, you have to make very fast decisions, very fast. And if something goes wrong, then you have to adapt and you have to correct the mistakes immediately, because the finish line is there to to measure the results. And sometimes I decided to take a risk. For example, there's a swamp, and when I run to the swamp and I look at it, and it's a couple of seconds where you have to make a decision. Okay, it's dry enough so that I can run across it and gain 15 winning seconds, and I do it. So that I think came from the orienteering. And the second came from working from the government. Do we introduce digital signatures? What do we lose? Nobody has done it in the world, but there's so much more to gain.
I see. And let's move on to the Estonian ecosystem. I have more questions, but I'm just choosing some of them. If you compare Estonian startup ecosystem with some others you are familiar with, be it European or non-European, how do you see the position? And also, do you see anything that we lack in the Estonian ecosystem, things that can be do better or in a different way? Do you see some improvement areas?
Yeah. In a way, I think Estonia can be combined to the ecosystem of, I think I would compare it to Silicon Valley. And why would I do it is that even though it's the world's largest and it's everybody's there, in a way it's a local and it works in the local network. And Estonia is also a very networked ecosystem and network country. We know each other, but what I haven't seen in any other countries is the Estonian Founders Society, which is a club, a voluntary non-profit organization that has by now 170 members. These are the top founders of Estonian startups. We do have our own Slack channel. We have the events. We take part of the government discussions. We take part of the developing the startup ecosystem. But most importantly, we help each other. We really help each other. So when we have a question around what payments applications to use for service A or B, then we help each other and with the investor contacts, and it's maybe the most private and most networked and connected startup ecosystems in the world. And the second that is defining Estonia is the easy access to everybody. Basically everybody. It's either we get access to the Estonian super founders, we get access to the president of the country, to the prime minister. So this access and ease of changes, introducing changes, is where nowhere else in the world I haven't seen. But comparing Estonia to Silicon Valley, we miss the universities part. So we are working on it, this kind of R&D and entrepreneurship education, and really this global entrepreneurship education.
I should also add that I totally agree with you. As a non-Estonian in the Estonian startup ecosystem, I totally agree that the network is very supportive, and also it is very close, so you have access to anyone. So
everybody.
Yeah, that's really a great thing. We have a few questions in the Q&A. Let's move to that. Gleb is asking, how many meetings with VCs did you have so far, and how many of them said yes?
It's an interesting question, because when I think about the fundraisers of Funderbeam, I haven't counted how many, I mean, a couple of hundred. maybe 100 during all those years. But I got yes from the investors that are important to me and to us, like Tim Draper and one of the Skype co-founders is Funderbeam investor, ties us on through his mistletoe. So these important yeses. But the funny is that one of Estonian startup announced just recently, you can, I don't know if you find it in anywhere when you Google, but Uula, and they said that they got 67 no's before they got the first yes that triggered the funding. And then it was interesting to see how the other founders started to add, okay, I got A, B, C. And one of the founders said that at one funding round, I got more than 100 no's. So then we all agreed that being a founder and raising money, that really requires a persistence. So I've never done 50 investor calls before closing Funderbeam rounds. So, but it is one of those low moments of the founder journeys when you need to please the market and you need to please the clients and then you need to please your team and your executives, and then you need to please to the investors.
So another question from Christoph. What's the usual time frame for startups between first contact and the start of the campaign on Funderbeam?
It depends on the startup. If the startup knows exactly how much money for what, they have some pre-agreed investors, and they have a good investment story in writing, then it's fast. Then we can measure the time in weeks. But some of the companies have been in touch with us 12 months before they became ready to raise funds on Funderbeam.
All right. If anyone has more questions, just put it in Q&A now, or else I will continue with more questions. Is there anything you want to emphasize, by the way, Kaidi, you want to talk about, or?
What I wanted to say is the founder journey is ups and downs, and it's mainly downs. So every founder who has gone through the founder journey, they agree that it's ups and downs. But in case you're someone investing in startup, or in case you're somebody supporting startup, then sometimes it makes sense not to go and demand good results or another report or something. Go and ask the founder, hey, by the way, can I help? And it may trigger into something more meaningful than actually either criticizing the startup or somehow giving a founder a feedback. Go and ask, can I help?
Right. So one more question from Christoph. Which industry is, from your perspective, underrepresented in the Estonian startup ecosystem?
I think it's deep tech. But it's because of where we come from, and I hope it's developing. I hope it's going to be improved in collaboration with the universities and the scientific regions. And the tech companies and entrepreneurs. So very often in Estonia, the science ends up in the drawer instead of being commercialized. So that's underrepresented, definitely.
Okay. So I want to shoot you some fun questions now.
Okay.
Yeah. So they will be very quick questions, yes and no, or
All right.
very brief answer. So, and it is better if you reply quickly.
Okay.
Okay. So they are non-business questions.
Don't worry.
Okay. Winter or summer?
Winter.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Any nickname you have had, if you had any?
Yes.
Maybe it's me.
Yes. A couple of nicknames. My granddad called me Punn because I was his firstborn or their firstborn grandchild. So somehow they started to call me. But because of my eyes, I've been also called a owl in the school. But none of none of these two names stick.
Okay. And actually, that also connects to my next question. I was going to ask you, morning person or a night owl?
Actually, I'm one of those funny people. Neither. I'm very angry when I wake up too early in the morning, and when my kids want something from me before I get my first cup of coffee, I'm very grumpy, really grumpy. And when it's 11 p.m. and there's a funny thing, my husband tells me we like to watch those creamy series. And when the series is over, we go to bed, and then I ask, who was the murderer? Because I slept half of the half of the series. So neither is actually the response.
Okay. Favorite type of music?
Sorry?
Favorite type of music?
Classical music.
Classical.
Mm-hmm.
On a plane, window or aisle seat?
I don't mind.
Any favorite
Aisle, maybe aisle. Yes.
Okay. Any favorite country you have?
Estonia, obviously, but I miss Singapore.
Okay. Something on your bucket list, but not business related?
Yes, I want to start supporting Estonian orienteering and the top athletes in Estonian national orienteering team. So if I can do it, then I've been able to give back to the hobby that helped me to develop my self-confidence.
Something you are terrible at? No pressure. If you want to skip, we can always skip.
No, I think I'm terrible at operational stuff. Yeah, so the procedures and stuff, my team really needs to remind me, Kaidi, you have to fill this part in, Kaidi, you have to do that. I'm more builder.
All right. Work-related call on a Sunday. You answer or you reject?
Depends on who is calling.
Okay. And last question. Do you have any undiscovered, useless talent? Something that you do well, but it doesn't work for anything.
I don't know if it's the useless, but I've been doing the decoration of our house, pick the colors and all these kind of things. I like the outcome very much, but I don't think I'm never going to be monetizing it. It's just a hobby.
All right. Actually, from the audience, we also have a question for the entertainment section. Eva is asking, what have been the most interesting, funny, weird answers or opinions by investors about Funderbeam while raising funds for Funderbeam?
Aha, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think there's like two sides. One is the amusement by the investors, how smooth everything is. When they log in, it's just so smooth. And the other amusement, what that's actually from my side, is that when investors invest because of somebody else is investing, and then you kind of ask why or something, and they say, I don't know, because there's my friend or somebody else suggested. So that's coming from somebody who has experience and really likes it, and then somebody who has no clue what they've invested in. So their opinion is based on somebody else's opinion. Maybe these are two most amazing or things that I've seen or heard.
Okay. So thank you, really thank you very much for your time. And for the audience, I should also mention Kaidi just accepted my invitation with no questions asked. So this, I was really, really pleased that she definitely wants to give back to the community. And do you have any final words to say before we wrap up?
I think something what I said, what I would tell to my personal me 15 years ago: don't underestimate yourself. You're so much stronger. If you have something in your bucket list, or definitely when it's about either should I invest in startup companies or should I become the founder myself, just go and do the first step. You're gonna be amazed how wonderful you are.
Perfect. Great closing. So today's Startup Grind Tallinn fireside chat, we had Kaidi Ruusalepp from Funderbeam. Thank you once again, Kaidi. Thank you everyone attending. I hope people got some valuable information. Again, I will keep the event available for the next 15 minutes. If anyone wants to interact, just do it. And if you want to know about the next events of Startup Grind Tallinn, I put the link on the chat. Just subscribe to the newsletter so you will know about it. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice evening.